Hello everyone. Let's begin with another session on cat questions. Now, these set of questions that I have picked up from the CAT 2024 Slot 1 paper. The first question pertains to odd sentence out. Now, let's have a look at the first question. Now, this question contains five jumbled up sentences related to a topic. Four of them can be put together to form a coherent paragraph. Identify the odd one. So in such kind of questions, you need to key in the option or the correct option in the type box. गलत है ऐसा कोई होता है. Okay. Hello everyone. Today we begin with another set of questions. Hello everyone. Today we begin with another set of questions for CAT. Now, these set of questions that I have picked up today are from the CAT 2024 Slot 1 paper. The first question is an odd sentence out kind of a question. Let's have a look. Okay. Now, when we are solving odd sentence out questions, we'll just read through the whole paragraph to get a sense of what the paragraph is trying to talk about, and then we'll try to figure out the odd one out. Okay. So let's have a look at the paragraph. Animals have an interest in fulfilling their basic needs, but also in avoiding their sufferings, and thus we need or to extend some moral consideration. We here refers to human beings, and animals have an interest in fulfilling their basic needs. Okay. Singer viewed himself as utilitarian. Singer would possibly be referring to a person. We can see if we find Singer anywhere else. And presents a contradictory moral theory concerning animal rights in contrast to indirect positions such as welfarist views. He argued for extending moral consideration. He, possibly Singer. So can we connect 2 and 3? The answer possibly might be yes. He argued for extending moral consideration to animals because, similar to humans, animals have certain significant interests. Okay. The event that publicly announced animal rights as a legitimate issue within contemporary philosophy was Peter Singer's animal liberation text in 1975. Now, between Peter Singer and Singer, full names precede half names. So, can we have 4, 2? Okay. As such, we ought to. Now, moment we have as such needs to have a precedent. Have a precedent. It acts as a pronoun. Okay. So now, what we have here, we can start with it announced something has begun. 4, Singer viewed himself as utilitarian and presents a direct moral theory in contrast to indirect positions such as welfarist views. He presents a direct moral theory. 4, 2. In the theory, he argued 4, 2, 3. He argued for extending moral considerations to animals because, similar to humans, animals have certain significant interests. Similar to humans, animals have certain significant interests. Now, so can I have 4, 2, 3 together? Yes. As such, animals have certain significant interests. As such, we ought to view their interests alongside and equal to human interests. 4, 2, 3, 5 makes absolute sense. Now, if we have another way of looking at things, if we look at the ending of 3, animals have certain significant interests. Animals have an interest. It's kind of a repetition. This part and this part will never repeat itself. More importantly, if we see 1, it is not necessarily talking in terms of Singer or his theory. It is talking in terms of animals in general. Hence, the odd one out. So the first one would be the odd one out in this question. Let's look at the RC passage that had occurred in CAT 2024 Slot 1. Now, this is a passage pertaining to economics. All of you in the link given provided can go through the RC passage and consequently answer the questions. Here, we'll discuss what the passage is all about and figure out the answers to the various questions that are there. Okay. Now, this passage is based on the idea of economics. Oftentimes, when economists cross borders, they are less interested in learning from others than in invading their garden plots. So we are talking about economists and their tendency, how they tend to learn less from people from varied fields or other fields and more interested in deploying their ideas, their means in other fields of study, which are not pertaining to economics. That is what is explained in the first paragraph. Gary Becker, for instance, pioneered the idea of human capital He famously tackled topics like crime and domesticity. Domesticity, when I think we are talking in terms of family life, marriage, and all the social institutions. Applying methods honed in the study of markets to domains of not market life. Now, honed in the study of markets, when I say we are talking in terms of capital, we are talking in terms of interest, we are talking in terms of profits, we are talking in terms of losses, those ideas into non market life. So, when we are talking in terms of calculations, economics, markets, so we are driving out somewhere, we are driving out emotions. We are bringing in calculations into the picture. He projected economics outwards into new realms. As a result, at the same time, he did not let others' way of thinking enter his own economic realm. For example, he did not borrow from anthropology or history, or let observations of non market economics inform his Homo economics. Becker was a picture of the imperial economist. Now, when we look at imperialism as a theory, imperialism was all about invading and conquering other people's territories and imposing their thoughts and ideas onto other people. So, economics has been considered imperial. It invaded into other people's territories, namely anthropology. We are talking about history, but never borrowed concepts from there. Okay. Now, times have changed for so this was once the case. Now, times have changed. Economics have been taken to task. Some economists have reached out. So they are extending. They are reaching out to other domains. Imported, borrowed, collaborated, been less imperial, more open. Thomas Piketty and his outreach to historians has reached out to historians. The booming field of behavioral economics, it is talking in terms of the fusion of economics and psychology, is another case. Having spawned active subfields like judgment decision making and a turn to experimentation, the field aims to go beyond the caricature of the rational mind. That means the field wishes to go beyond the Homo economist that had been discussed in the or beyond the realms of economics, learning from other areas and other fields. So the first paragraph presents economics as a straitjacket theory, impervious. The second paragraph shows that economics is now pervious. It is ready to borrow, ready to accept ideas from other fields of theory. It is important to underscore how this flips the way we think about economics. So, economics, previously, we used to think of us in a certain way. Now, for changed understanding, it flips the way, it changes the way we think about economics. Now, previously, if we look across, economics have presumed that people have interests and preferences and they act in accordance to their preferences. If you are hungry, you buy lunch. If you feel cold, get a sweater. So everything is rational, everything is logical. Okay? Now, psychologists take one look at this simple formulation and shake their heads in dismay, if I were to add. This is not exactly how the world works. It is not a calculation. So we are talking, so people not always behave rationally. Even some mainstream economists have to admit that Haycom doesn't always behave like the textbook maximizer. Textbook maximizer in the textbook way, as is predicted in the theories of economics. Irrational behavior. So people do not always act rationally. People act irrationally in many times. People know consuming two sweets is high. One is good enough, two is on the higher side. But many a times you find people consuming more and more sweets. People who go in for gambling, the more they lose, they continue gambling. All these are irrational behaviors. We are talking about psychology coming into the picture. This is one place where the humanist can help the economist. So when irrational behavior comes into the equation, this is where the humanists come into the picture. Now, if we read the last line, if narrative economics is going to help us understand how rivals duke it out, who wins and who loses, we are going to need much more than lessons from epidemiological studies of viruses and intracranial stimuli. So we are talking in terms of biological studies, we are talking in terms of scientific studies, which are majorly factual by nature, a cause and an effect relationship. we are going to need much more than this cause and effect relationship. We need the humanists to help us understand how people behave and how economics behaves for a lot of people. Above all, beyond this, we have politics and institutions. Now, Schiller connects perceptions of narratives. Narratives primarily means storytelling. Now, storytelling leads to perceptions. Perceptions lead to behavior. Behavior of a group of people leads to social outcomes. Now, what shapes perceptions or what shapes narratives primarily is the idea of politics, institutions, media houses, lobbying. All these influence the idea of storytelling, hence behavior, hence social outcomes. Agreed? This cycle was once mediated and dominated by institutions, the political parties, lobby groups, media organizations that played a vital role in legitimizing, representing, and excluding interests. Now, so the author here is talking about how Schiller has incorporated the idea of storytelling, how storytelling shapes human behavior into making various economic decisions. But in the last line, he criticizes Schiller, he questions Schiller. Yet institutions have been stripped from Schiller's account to reveal the bare dynamic of emotions directly to economics. Now, what frames emotions is basically the idea of storytelling without the intermediary place of politics. So we have social institutions, we have media houses, we have lobbying groups, we have politics that frame narratives. Narratives lead to perceptions, perceptions, storytelling, storytelling to behavior. That is how now Schiller, in his accounting of emotions, has somewhere subtracted the idea of intermediating institutions, which the author is not comfortable with. Because throughout history, it has been these institutions that have helped in the formation of storytelling, perceptions, behaviors, and social outcomes. Okay? So the passage talks in terms of how the perceptions of economics have changed from once an impervious discipline to now, wherein it is ready to borrow from other fields of study. The author, towards the end, talks in terms of Schiller, who talks in terms of the importance of storytelling or narratives in the ideas of economics. But somewhere Schiller seems to have made a mistake in trying to discard the role of politics and other social institutions in the storytelling process. This is primarily what the passage is about. Now, let's have a look at the questions. Okay. In the first paragraph, the author is making the point that economics like Becker. Now, what is the point of Becker as it's been introduced in the passage? If we see it from here, he did not let other ways of thinking enter his own economic realm. For example, he did not borrow from anthropology or history or let observations of inform his own economists. He definitely invaded into their territory. But at the same time, he did not allow observations from fields of anthropology or history to help him think better or understand better. So, in the first paragraph, the author, is he tending to guard his discipline? The answer is no, he is an invader, benefited from the application of their principles and concepts to non economic phenomena. Okay. Used economics to analyze without incorporating the perspective from other areas of inquiry. So, the correct answer, option C, it is directly mentioned in the passage. Times have changed for the once almighty discipline. Now, if in a moment you look, almighty, it has been brought to its knees. Sarcastic. The tone is very simply sarcastic. Times have changed for the once almighty discipline. Okay. So when we look at the word almighty and we are looking at how economics has been taken to task within and beyond its ramparts, when we are talking about this, the tone is sarcastic. The author critiques Schiller. Now we have discussed Schiller. The author questions Schiller. He has been questioned without the intermediating place of politics. This is where the problem in Schiller's account is where the author feels. Now we have to find out that. Relying excessively on storytelling. Excessively is again a negative word. He relies on storytelling. So again, that would not be the problem is with intermediate without the intermediating place of politics is where Schiller has been found wrong by the author. Denigrating is severely critical of the role of institutions. No, this is false as per the passage. Linking emotions and rational behavior without considering mediation of social institutions. Yes. C. To reveal a bare dynamic of emotions and economics without the intermediating place of politics. So option C is the correct answer. Ah. We can infer from the passage that the term Homo economist primarily refers to the rational man. Okay, we have without informing his Homo economist, or we have the rational man here, the man who always, if you are hungry, you buy lunch, if you feel cold, you get a starter. This is the Homo economist. So makes rational decisions based on their own preferences. Okay, so this is primarily the Homo economist whom we are talking about. Okay, the last question for the day. This is one of the simplest questions. In solving these questions, we need to get the flow right. The brain isn't organized the way you might set up your office or bathroom cabinet. Okay, you can't just put things anywhere away. The whole architecture of the brain is haploid and disjoint and incorporates multiple systems, each of which has a mind of its own. Evolution doesn't design things and it doesn't build systems. It settles on systems that historically conveyed a survival benefit. Now, when we read this paragraph, what we see is look at these words: you, your home, you. The rest changes the subject. So, very simply, if we go by the flow of things, the brain isn't organized the way you might set up your home or office or bathroom cabinet. You can't just put things anywhere you want. 1, 2, 3, 4. Rest, nowhere in the passage do we see the reference to you. Hence, option 1 here, this is the place where we put it, or option 1. I hope all of you have understood the questions and seen a way how to solve the questions. We'll keep coming up with newer videos. Do subscribe to the channel and keep watching. Thank you.